Good morning and welcome to the second episode of Celestial Sundays here on Shady Pines Radio. I am Moonlit Britt and I am so grateful to be here and so excited you have decided to join me. Celestial Sundays is a 2-hour show of music and talk about all things mystical and magical, astrology, spirituality, metaphysics, divination, new age, and supernatural subjects will be discussed here, all while playing some excellent music. Each show will discuss different subject matters, and this week we are picking up where we left off last with birth charts. Last week we talked about sun signs, moon signs, rising signs, and what each planet represents and how they play out in your natal chart. This week we will continue with discussing the 12 houses and what they represent and how they work in your birth chart. If you did not catch last week's episode, you can listen to it on my YouTube channel, which is Celestial Sundays with Moonlit Britt on Shady Pines Radio. I also have a Facebook page of the same name where I have shared the YouTube link. I would love for you to head on over and click like and follow. I'm always down to answer questions about the show and the subject matter, as well as take requests. I will also take dedications. I appreciate your participation so much. I also have a pretty sweet contest giveaway type thing in the works, so head on over to the Facebook page so you don't miss out on that announcement. So first things first, I suggest we all pull up our birth charts so it will be easier to understand. Don't have a birth chart done yet? Well, my go-to has always been Cafe Astrology. You can pull yours while the songs are playing, and it's super easy. It's great for beginners and thorough enough for people who are well seasoned. So the website is cafeastrology.com/free natal chart report.html. You can also just use an internet search engine to type in free birth chart during the songs being played to get your birth chart if that website doesn't work for you. If you are not sure what time you were born, now would be a good time to check your birth certificate or give your parents or guardian a call. And hey, if you are unable to pull your birth chart today, that's okay. I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible for you to understand. Your natal chart looks like a clock or wheel. The first house starts over on the left around 9 o'clock and goes counterclockwise rather than clockwise. Why does the first house start here in this location? Well, the houses are aligned to Earth's 24-hour axis around the sun, and the first house is right where the sun rises from the east, which determines your rising sign or ascendant. Last week, we discussed your rising sign, and this is actually your first house. I consider it to be part of the big three when it comes to your birth chart. So just in case you missed last week's episode and why I touched on that there and not here, I will revisit right now to you what the rising sign means. Your rising sign, also called the ascendant, appears in your first house, and it is often described as our mask because it is how we present ourselves to the world. It's our social personality in a way. It is often reflected in our outward style. Your rising sign is determined by the planetary influence, which was rising on the eastern horizon when you were born. This is your first house. So each house is ruled by a zodiac sign, just like the planets all rule a zodiac sign, as we discussed last week. So the first house is ruled by Aries, as it is the first sign in the zodiac, and it goes in order from there. Okay, I think now is a good time to play 3 songs. This will give you time to hop online and pull up your birth chart. Remember, you need time and location of birth. And then you can look over your chart while I explain house placement. The songs I am playing for this show today have to do with the home or houses. So I think a good first Sunday morning song would be Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros with Home. Welcome back. That last song was Casey Musgraves with My House. And I have to admit, I am not a big country fan at all. I'm just not. There are a few exceptions to the rule, though, and she is one of them. I really love her music, and that song is so cute. it's a fantasy of mine to just have a house on wheels and just go wherever you fancy, seeing places all over the country, singing for your supper, living the dream. The song before that was one of my all-time favorites, Talking Heads with This Must Be the Place, a song about wanting to be home and with someone that they love. So, were you able to pull up your chart? If not, no biggie. If so, great. All right, we covered the first house already and how it represents your outward appearance, attitude, and style. The house is ruled by Aries. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be an Aries rising. That's just the house that Aries resides in, or rules, excuse me. But there are 11 more houses, and when you were born, certain planets were in those houses. But as it aligns with our 24-hour day, those positions change. So the goal is to determine where each planet, with its own specific meanings, lies in what house is for you. By doing this, we discover what our life's struggles, issues, attitudes, strengths, weaknesses, and successes may be, and how we can work with them. So it's important to consider which houses have a lot of planets in them and which are empty. If you happen to have a lot of planets in one house, it may be showing an area that is going to be highly influential, important, critical, or even formidable. If you have houses that are empty, it's okay. It just means that it's less influential and a little more fluid for you. To put it simply, if you have a planet in a house, it means that planet's traits and themes are infused into that house's life areas. If you don't have a planet in that house, it simply means that you don't have the energy of a specific planet infused into a life area. It is not bad to have an empty house in your natal chart. It's normal, so do not fret. So aside from the first house, what are the other 11? The second house is ruled by Taurus, and it's all about money, possessions, physical environments, and your self-esteem. So depending on what planet is occupying your house and what that planet represents, this will determine your relationship, attitude, and habits towards these things ruled by this house. So in an example, if you have the planet Mars in your second house and that Mars was in Gemini when you were born, you are probably going to be a very persuasive haggler who knows how to get the best deal. Your ability to communicate well, which is from the Gemini, and Mars, being the planet of action and passion, is an asset. And you can speak for days about things that you've done or like to do, which is great for self-esteem, or you're really good at least faking it until you make it. This would be someone who could not only charm and persuade to get what they want, but also be excellent at it. So that's just one example of placement in this house with planets. The variables are insane. That's why I encourage you to do your chart so you can look at it and see what yours looks like. It's all about the particular placements you have. They can either be detrimental or to your advantage. Next is the third house, which represents communication, intellect, communities, and relationship building. And of course, it's ruled by Gemini. So depending on what planet is in this house and what the planet was in at that time, it will dictate how you communicate, how you think, and how you build rapport with people. Another example for you. Okay, let's say you have Jupiter in the third house. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, abundance, and good fortune and happiness. So when you have that in the house of communication, you would be someone who loves to talk about anything and everything, usually positive stuff, really upbeat. You're open-minded, you like to philosophize with people, and people may come to you for advice or just to feel good because they know you're going to have some words of encouragement and just positive talk, Again, just throwing out different examples so you can kind of get an idea of where planets and what they represent work in each house. Your birth chart will tell you where you align. The fourth house represents the home, intuition, parenting, and children. It is ruled by Cancer. You may notice that the fourth house is on the bottom of the wheel, and that is because the things in this house are akin to the base of our lives, our homes, intuition, our parenting and childhood, our roots. Again, if you do not have a planet in this house, or maybe any of the other house I've mentioned thus far, that's not a bad thing. It just means you don't have a strong influence there and it's more open for you. And on that note, let's continue with our musical theme of homes and houses today. Here is one of my favorite artists, the late, great Eddie Money with Take Me Home Tonight. Okay, welcome back. You just heard John Mellencamp with Pink Houses and Leonard Skinnard with Sweet Home Alabama, a couple of blue collar songs to continue our house and home theme for the tunes today. So we left off at the fourth house, which is ruled by Cancer and represents our home life and roots. And next is the fifth house. I love this house. The fifth house represents creativity, pleasure, playfulness, spontaneity, love, and romance, and it's ruled by Leo. No wonder it's called the house of pleasure. So depending on what planet occupies this house for you, it will determine how you express joy, what is pleasurable to you, how you love and enjoy things or people. Self-expression is so important here. The ability to play and let loose, all with the freedom, creativity, and enthusiasm of a child. That lies here. This may manifest in relationships or in art, whatever is a great way for you to express your creativity. So if you have a jolly planet like Jupiter here, it's a party. Freedom and fun abound. That would be an awesome placement. Or if you have a more serious planet like Saturn, you may get frustrated easily and are kind of scared to let loose lest you be judged. That's a tongue twister right there. Scared to let loose lest you be judged. Say that a few times. Regardless, the fifth house can be incredibly fun if the stars align. And if they don't, that's always something you can work on. So moving on, we now have the sixth house. Things get a little bit more serious here. And it's not surprising. It is represented by Virgo, which represents health, details, order, work, and structure. It's ruled by Virgo, as I said, and it is the house of health primarily. But our work and service are central to the sixth house too. So keeping ourselves strong and healthy is vital so that we may be able to be successful in our occupations. The sixth house is incredibly important to someone who may have a lot of medical issues, chronic illnesses, or disabilities. Their planetary placement in this house could be quite telling and even beneficial. It would allow them to confront their situation and deal with the lessons here, which, as we discussed in last week's episode, are more than likely tied to their karmic debts and bonds from their latest past life. This applies to all planets and houses in our natal charts, but I thought this would be a good place to bring this up because there's so many of us that have health issues, and this is the house to dissect for that. The seventh house represents partnerships, marriage, friendships, legal proceedings, and it is ruled by Libra. Makes sense, right? Libras are represented by the scales. They're the only sign in the zodiac that is not an animal, a human, or a hybrid of both. So the seventh house will be about the balance and weight of the things I just mentioned: legal proceedings, partnerships, friendships, marriages. While it's often called the house of marriage, it is all about any kind of relationship too, not just romantic, but friendships and business relationships. It's all about balance and your approach to these liaisons. We haven't done an example. Well, I guess we did just do an example, but let's just say the planet of Uranus is in your seventh house. Uranus is the awakening planet, the outside the norm, think outside the box planet. Well, if Uranus is in the seventh house and it was in Sagittarius at your birth, oh my gosh, you may never get married. You may be too independent, too loving of your freedom. Or maybe you are wholly unconventional and you'll get married way young or way older. Or you're someone who's attracted to the unusual. Someone or something about the other person intrigues you and is kind of out there. Or maybe your Venus is in the seventh house. Then you would be more likely to have a happy marriage, devoted to your partnerships, feel good there. See, that is just so crazy, the variables that happen when it comes to planetary placement in our houses. I hope that you're learning something, and if you do have your birth charts in front of you, Isn't it exciting to kind of read and look over what planets are in what houses and go, oh my gosh, that is how I am. Oh my gosh, that is how I act. It really is a trip. All right, and let's get to the eighth house. So that's where we're at, right? Yes, just talked about the seventh house. So the eighth house represents change, transformation, debts, secrets, fears, other people's money, and the big one, sex. It's ruled by Scorpio, of course, and it also represents control in so many aspects. And this planet is a place of giving up some control, which can be very uncomfortable. So let's say your eighth house is occupied by Mercury. Mercury is the communication planet. Here is the house of secrets and control. So someone with Mercury placement in the eighth house will probably be very secretive, someone that holds their cards close to the chest, while maybe being a complete animal in the bedroom with no inhibitions. Also could be someone who would possibly have a real dark sense of humor or would be very observant. Again, these are just examples. What planet resides in your eighth house? As for me, I have no planet in the eighth house. This means I have no strong influence here. There are 10 planets in astrology, while there are 12 houses. So every person has at least 2 empty houses, if not more. This doesn't mean the energy of that house isn't present in your life. It actually means you're not as focused on it because it's not as much of a struggle or issue for you. I know we touched on it a little bit earlier, but I thought it is important to bring it up again. Many believe that an empty house represents an area of life that you already dealt with in past lives, so there's not much karma to work out there, whereas the houses that are occupied with planets represent some of the karmic work you still need to do. All right, we just did 4 more houses, and I think we ended there on the 8th house, right? Time for some music. So I'm thinking it's time to step it up a notch, right? I think let's rock a little. I love rock and roll. I don't know about you guys, but really that's where my heart's at. So I think the best way to get started with this next 3-song set is with Motley Crue, Home Sweet Home. Ah, yes, such great jams right there. After Motley Crue's Home Sweet Home, you heard Ozzy Osbourne's Mama, I'm Coming Home, and then Foo Fighters' song New Way Home. Oh my gosh, you guys, I have to say, I absolutely love hard rock, rock and roll, and I am a big fan of metal. Last week on our show, we featured songs that are done by Virgo artists. And I was so tempted to play Megadeth because Dave Mustaine is a Virgo. And I decided against it, but I know that metal is not everyone's cup of tea. And I wanted to have my first episode be friendly for everyone. And I will probably keep it that way, but who's to say I won't throw in some metal here and there? I do like a decent amount of it. Not all of it, but a pretty decent amount, the classics. So anyway, it was really fun to play Motley Crue and Ozzy and Foo right there. And I mean, who doesn't love those 3 bands? If if you don't like Motley Crue or Ozzy Osbourne or Foo Fighters, that's okay. It's fine. To each their own. But the majority of people I know really love those bands, and it was fun to play them. Anyway, I digress. So the last houses we covered before the music were the 5th house, the house of pleasure, the 6th house, also known as the house of health, then the 7th house, which is the house of marriage and relationships, and the 8th house, the house of transformation and sex. So now we are on to the 9th house. The 9th house represents higher education, growth, expansion, religion, and philosophy. It is ruled by Sagittarius. For this house, it is all about seeking the meaning and truth of things. The way we expand our lives is ruled here, whether that be through travel, education, or life experience. This house is all about our journey of discovery. It can go so many ways. Since this planet is ruled by Sagittarius, which is in turn ruled by Jupiter, this house really is about expansion. And so much of that comes through knowledge and ideas, travel. All enriching experiences of your life's journey are a part of this house. It is the house that holds the broadening of horizons. The 10th house represents social status, career, aspirations, and it is ruled by Capricorn. Here's something fun. To determine which career would be best for you, look at the sign on the cusp of this house as well as what planets are in this house on your birth chart. For me, my 10th house is occupied by Jupiter, and a quick internet search is all you need if you don't have the proper books to show you what exactly that means and how that can guide you with your career or even with your wealth. So for someone like me who has Jupiter in their 10th house, this means that this person usually will do well, and that often comes later in life, and that they have a lot of help sometimes from people of authority or father figures. Anyway, I digress, but that's just a fun little thing to do with the 10th house. Authority figures in your life are also in this house. The planets in this house hold influence on not only your career and social status, but on your life path and future as well. Again, as I just said, remember the internet is your friend. I've given many examples, but if you aren't sure what a planet's placement means in your chart, a quick internet search should help, though most charts today don't just cast the wheel chart, they also explain what each placement means for you. Moving on to the 11th house, which is ruled by Aquarius and in charge of your humanitarianism, friendships, connections, hopes, dreams, destiny, and how we work in groups. It represents how we are as friends and how our friendships and connections can help or influence our dreams or even destiny. The 11th house represents originality and also creative ideas. The 12th house and final house represents the occult, psychic abilities, subconscious, and it's ruled by Pisces. It represents all things without physical forms, like dreams, intuitions, emotions, the unseen realm, if you will. Any planet placed in the 12th house will be representative of your inner psychic abilities. Being as how it is the house of the subconscious, this is where we can transform self-limiting patterns. You can use the planet or planets in this house as a guide to tap into the unseen realm for inspiration, or to lose a part of yourself by suppressing your desires. When operating on autopilot without being self-aware, 12th house planets can represent negative, self-limiting patterns within our own mind. Shadow work would be something to look up to see how it relates to the 12th house. Okay, time for some tunes. I think we're going to go classic now. It's definitely time for some classics. And what better way to start that than with Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young and their classic song, Our House. Okay, that was the Beatles with The Two of Us, and before that was House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. So we have covered all the houses in our birth charts, but are we done? No, we are not. Looking at your birth chart, did you notice one house in particular had 3 or more planets residing in it? Or maybe 3 or more planets in a particular sign? Well, if so, then that is your stellium. What is a stellium? Well, one planet stands alone in a particular house and sign in your birth chart. It carries its own significance and weight that influences that part of your life, as we've discussed. But when you have a group of 3 planets or more clustered together in a house, or 3 or more of the same sign repeating in planets, it makes its influence much stronger and more impactful, and that is a stellium. An example, when looking at my birth chart, I see Mars, Saturn, and Pluto in Libra, creates a Libra stellium. I also have 3 planets in my 10th house, creating a 10th house stellium. So for me, a 10th house stellium gives me a solid foundation on which to stand. It also means I enjoy being my own boss or being independent from authority figures in general. This is a very strong influence because 3 planets are here making it known. What to do with this? Well, remember earlier when I mentioned that some houses are empty and that may mean that you don't have any karmic debts in that realm? Yay! Well, with a stellium, that means you have 3 or more planets in a single house, and that can mean it is something that you are bringing over from your most recent past life. Remember, our birth charts are reflections of our karma from our last incarnation. So, with the house stellium, that house and the particular planets that are clustered in it may reflect on what you need to work on, or maybe what you need to embrace. For me, the 10th house is a powerful place for me and something I need to look at in regards to my past lives. Speaking of past lives, let's break away from the birth chart talk just a little bit. I'm very much a believer in past lives, and we will definitely be talking about them on this show. I was fortunate enough to have an Akashic Records reading as well as a past life regression. I actually had the past life regression first, and then about 6 to 8 months later, I had the Akashic Records reading, both done by separate people. I'm not even sure if they know each other, but wow, it was mind-blowing. I really believe after those experiences that all people should have a past life regression and an Akashic Records reading. Why? Because it sheds so much light onto our current behaviors and patterns. In conjunction with your birth chart, you can discover what patterns, behaviors, and actions are an issue for you, and in order to evolve as beings, they must be worked on. So for me, I see that my stellium in the 10th house means I have probably got some karmic bonds and debts with career or authority figures. All right, but what about sign stelliums? My Libra stellium means there is a tremendous amount of focus on that sign. This is good because Libra is a laid-back, social air sign that makes friends easily. They don't want to tip the scales that rule them, so social graces and harmony are strongly needed for someone with a Libra stellium. And as far as opinions go on stellium, well, some astrologers have different opinions. Some say it is 4 or more planets. Others say 3. I feel 3 is plenty. That's a lot of energy to be clustered in one sign or house. And regardless if it's 3 or 4, you're going to be heavily influenced by that cluster either way. Most astrologers and astrology enthusiasts tend to say 3 these days. Okay, let's listen to some more music. The next 3 songs, I'm thinking it's time to dance. So here is Brick House by the Commodores. There was a little hip hop for ya. Flo Rida with My House and Drake with Hold On, We're Going Home. So we still have a few things left to cover in our birth charts. I know we're getting close, but just a few more loose ends we need to tie up that I think are important and are often overlooked. And it's unfortunate because these things that I want to talk about have a lot of potential to help you grow and heal in your life. Those being Chiron, North and South nodes, and the Black Lilith moon. But first, Chiron. In Greek mythology, Chiron was the wisest of all centaurs, famous for his vast knowledge of medicine. He was also the son of a god, Cronus, which made him immortal. He taught Achilles, Hercules, and many others. He gave up his immortality so mankind could have fire. He healed others, but his own powers could not heal him. The asteroid that orbits our solar system somewhere between Uranus and Saturn represents the legendary centaur and is often referred to as the wounded healer. Chiron's placement in your chart is the key to healing past life issues and the areas of your life that have always felt more difficult than others. Your Chiron often shows you your deepest vulnerabilities, insecurities, areas of your self-esteem that can't seem to be remedied no matter how hard you try. But it's not all sorrow, because where Chiron points us to all the deep wounds we have, it also shows us our greatest spiritual strengths. These wounds will teach us the most, and by facing them and working on them, we are reborn. And with renewal comes the excitement of success, of defeat, of that which hurt you or held you back. What wounds us really makes us stronger and more resilient, as well as compassionate. So when you look at the planetary placements in certain houses and what those combined represent in connection with Chiron's placement in your chart, this should be a great indication of what it is you need to address or heal. Now, Chiron is spelled Chirons, but it's not pronounced Chiron or Chiron. It's Chiron. And I think I want to play 3 more songs. Now, I know we just listened to 3, but I want to play 3 more to give you the opportunity to, if you do have your birth chart, to look at it and try and find Chiron's placement so you can compare that with which planets are residing in which houses for you. These are all great clues to your past life. So I want to give you an opportunity to do that, but I also have a hidden agenda. I'm going to start this set with a classic. I hope you all sing along if you know the words, especially the chorus. This song, I could not play this. I mean, the theme is houses and homes, right? All right, so here is John Denver with Country Roads. That was such a fun little set of songs. We heard Ryan Adams and the Cardinals with When Will You Come Back Home and House of Cards by Radiohead. Did you guys sing along to John Denver? It's so hard not to. Does anyone else think of the cat in a cowboy hat meme now when you hear that song, or is it just me? Maybe I'll post it on my Facebook page for those that haven't seen it. And speaking of my Facebook page, I would love to have you join me there. I spoke about it at the very beginning of the show, but thought I would throw out a reminder here since I just brought it up. My page is titled after the show, so it should be pretty easy to find. In the next couple days, I'm going to be doing a contest with a pretty sweet giveaway. The giveaway includes an incredible book, the Moonology journal and planner for the upcoming year, the Starseed Oracle deck, a sage bundle, selenite wand, and a couple other crystals as well. So definitely a cool package to win. So make sure you go to my page and click like so you don't miss out on how to win that. Also, Shady Pines Radio has a Facebook page, which I highly encourage you to click like on and follow. This radio station is loaded with such excellent shows. I am really enjoying listening to all the different music and subject matter. So huge shout out and thank you to Callie and Brian for creating such an awesome and wickedly creative space for us all to share knowledge, entertainment, music, and artistry. It's so cool. And there is an app now. I find myself listening to the Shady Pines Radio app way more than Spotify as of late. So please be sure to check out the other shows on Shady Pines Radio as well as download the app. Now, back to our birth charts. We are almost done here, guys. Just a couple other subjects to tackle. And one of those is the Black Moon Lilith. I think Valerie Mesa with Vice.com said it perfect. So I'm just going to quote her here. She says, "The Black Moon Lilith is the geometric point in the sky that marks the furthest point of the moon's orbit around the Earth. Because the moon's orbit is elliptical, it has 2 center points. One is the Earth and the other is Black Moon Lilith. This dark void, which stays approximately 9 months in each sign, embodies the very essence of the goddess Lilith. In an astrological chart, Black Moon Lilith represents a person's primitive impulses and behavior in their rawest form. It reveals our repressed sexuality, together with what makes us feel most vulnerable. It expresses the dark side of one's personality, buried deep in the subconscious realms of our psyche. Knowing where Black Moon Lilith is located in a birth chart can reveal information related to the shadow self and can also determine possible hidden sexual fantasies and secret fetishes. And finally, let's talk about nodes, the North Node and the South Node. You probably see them in your chart and are wondering what they represent. Well, the North and South nodes of a birth chart are also known as the nodes of fate. they're actually lunar nodes, so more moon aspects here. These two aspects are not planets, but the points where the moon's orbit pushed through the plane of ecliptic when you were born. If your north node is in Capricorn, the south node will be in Cancer. They are always going to be zodiac opposites, just like north is the opposite of south. So the north node describes the person you should work on becoming, your karmic direction, while your south node exposes the qualities you need to move beyond. Otherwise, you might never feel as though you've truly grown in this life, and they are here to help guide us. So do you guys see how many clues are in your birth chart in regards to your past lives? It's like a treasure map loaded with clues and pointers, and it's all divinely orchestrated to a science. Yes, it tells us about our personalities, our strengths, our weakness, our behaviors. Yes, who we are, the blueprint of you. But then it's also a blueprint of your past lives. I love it. I am so excited for you guys to read your birth charts, for those of you that are new to it, and marvel over how precise they are. Sometimes it can be jarring. Our ego doesn't like to admit certain aspects of ourselves, but when you learn to be vulnerable and accepting of your not so great traits, the real growth and self-awareness begins. Thank you guys so much for listening to me and learning about birth charts with me. I'm going to play our last set of songs, and it's actually going to be 2 songs. The first song I'm going to play is Your House by Steel Pulse, and I would like to dedicate this to my beautiful, loving, talented, amazing boyfriend, Will. This song is one of our songs for sure. And then the very last song has nothing to do with houses or homes. I'm breaking away at the very last song, and it is a dedication to my dear beloved friend Jamie, who is a Virgo and just celebrated her birthday. And so I'm going to play her favorite song by her favorite artist, and that is Guarantees by Atmosphere. I really hope today either taught you something or was enlightening, and I really appreciate you spending your Sunday morning with me. I hope you guys all have a blessed day, and you join me next week here on Shady Pines Radio. This is Moonlit Britt. I love you all. Be well and enjoy the rest of your week.